right, so this is something pretty interesting. Now, Jordan Peterson, someone who is considered to be very smart by many people. I don't know why that is. He's worst of all a climate change denier, which is pretty hilarious. He constantly does that over and over again. He's put out tweets of PragerU and videos of PragerU and climate denial articles. It's really, really cringy. Now, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast at one point, and he actually said that, well, sorry, first let me say Joe Rogan asked him if he's ever debated any Marxists, and Jordan Peterson's response was no, and that Marxists don't debate me. Now, this is something interesting, because there have been a bunch of people who are Marxists who have tried to have debates with Jordan Peterson, and he has elected instead to not do so, and he's basically backed out of them. Now, you guys know who Richard Wolff is. Richard Wolff is someone who's a pretty well-known economist who's part of the Marxist school of thought in terms of economics, and he challenged him. He put out a video on YouTube, actually, where I think it's titled Richard Wolff Takes on Jordan Peterson, and he basically invited him to a debate to talk about, Marxism and Marxist economics and communism. That's what he wanted to talk about. And Jordan Peterson was at one of his interviews that he was doing somewhere. I'm not sure where this was. Probably, I think it was part of his tour that he's doing, this worldwide tour that he's doing. And so we know Jordan Peterson knows about this, because as you guys are about to see here, he's going to respond. So go ahead and check this out.
The magic of the internet, it is possible for me to respond to some things that were said by a Canadian psychologist by the name of Jordan Peterson, who teaches at the University of Toronto. I'm not going to be talking about the psychology he teaches or that he preaches, because that's not my area of expertise, just as it's clear that Marxism is not his. However, he has made statements about Marxism, despite not knowing very much about it, as is evident from what he says. These have included daring Marxists to debate with him, just for the record, anytime, anywhere, as long as we can work out the details, no problem at this end. Not have the equality that capitalism promised. And the answer is in the analysis of capitalism, the way in which capitalism organizes society with employers and employees, thereby becoming wealthier while the mass of the working people are excluded from the very surplus their creativity puts on this earth. In other words, there's an explanation. If Mr. Peterson understood that, his critique of capitalism might address that explanation. Instead, he acts as though there is no explanation, that Marxism is about the envy of the poor against the rich, with this caricature, with this straw man, which he knocks down with gusto. He thinks he's actually done something. For those who know something about Marxism, listening to him is embarrassing.
There's this professor, I think his name is Wolff. He put a challenge up on YouTube to me a couple of weeks ago to debate him. And what did he say? He said, he criticized my criticism of Marx. He said, well, that Peterson, he's basically stuck in 1989. It's like, we've progressed way past the time of the Stalinists. It's like, Cuba can't feed itself, and that's just a smattering of Marxist catastrophes. It's like, well, how much evidence do you need exactly? And here's also what I think about modern Marxists. This is what they think. First of all, they think they're driven by compassion, and they're not, because they're not saints. And second, what they truly believe is, well, everyone so far that's implemented Marxism, they weren't really the true acolyte of Marx that I am. They didn't have the real insight into the Marxist philosophy that I do. If I would have been running the Soviet Union, instead of Stalin, I would have ushered in the communist utopia. When the truth of the matter is that had you been a genuinely compassionate Marxist in 1915, your head would have been among the first on the chopping block. You can be absolutely certain of that. So I don't buy any of it, and I don't understand for the life of me why it's any more permissible in polite society to proclaim proudly that you're a Marxist after the absolute catastrophe of the 20th century than it is to claim that you're a National Socialist. So That's how it looks to me. I'm no fan of left-wing collectivists, or those on the right, for that matter.
I'll talk about that in a moment. It's probably because they have what is called the monopolio de los sentimientos, the monopolio, how would you say that? Monopoly, no, that sounds a bit weird. They have the control or the dominance over feelings, no? That's where the left...
Well, it's a mask of compassion. It's like, well, I'm for the poor. It's like, yeah, sure you are. It's not that easy to be for the poor. It's not that easy. You know, and one of the things that's worth reflecting on, for example, is that, you know, there's antipathy generated towards the 1%, you know, because, well, I already pointed out that in systems of productivity, as Marx did point out, a vast proportion of what's produced goes to a relatively small minority of people. That's definitely the case. But, like, where do you draw the line exactly? So, like, you're a modern Western Marxist, right? And you're concerned about the 1%. It's like, you know what? How much money you need to make per year to be among the top 1% in the world? It's $32,000. So, everyone in the West is part of the 1%.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
What? Like, so what? What? We're all on the chopping block? Or no? What do? We decide that there's an arbitrary border within which we're going to calculate that. And that turns out to be conveniently the case, that the despicable rich are those people who have more money than me.
All right, so this wouldn't really be a big deal had Jordan Peterson not said that Marxists won't debate him in response to Joe Rogan asking him as to whether or not he's debated a Marxist, because I don't necessarily think that, you know, that he would necessarily need to debate everyone, but when you set up a standard for yourself where you go, oh no, Marxists won't debate me. It's same thing with Steven Crowder and Dave Rubin, where Steven Crowder claims that lefties won't debate him, and he only debates college kids. And then when Sam Cedar invites him on for a debate, he just straight up ignores him and just, you know, keeps it on the underground. So yeah, you're now worthy of criticism because you set up a standard for yourself where you make this rambunctious claim that lefties won't debate you to get attention and to establish some sort of ideological supremacy because you're like, hey, I mean, I want to debate, but, you know, lefties won't debate. They're just too scared. And then when Sam Cedar challenges you, funny enough, you duck like a coward. Same thing with Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin is all about the free exchange of ideas, the battle of ideas, right? The battlefield of ideas. That's what he is all about, right? Well, what happens when Sam Cedar wants to come on his show and to talk? Doesn't look like much of a free exchange of ideas anymore, does it? No. It's because he doesn't want to bring a leftist on who's going to educate him. He doesn't want to do that. Same thing with Anna Kasparian. She wants to come on too, and he will not do it for obvious reasons. So, it's important to call this out simply because of the standards that are being set. So again, had he not stated that that Marxists won't debate him, then it wouldn't really be all that big of a problem, to be completely frank with you. Because then it's like, okay, you don't necessarily have to debate everyone. But you said that, so now this is going to come back to really bite you. Another thing I have is I really don't get why, and I'm not even a Marxist, by the way. I'm pretty far from Marxism. I'm just a social democrat. I despise communism and things like that and super far left ideologies, especially in the tanky world. Things like anarcho-syndicalism. I don't consider them to be like scum, but I just think that it's kind of a ridiculous idea that we could have that sort of economy in the United States. But anyways, the point here being, and also I don't know what people see in Jordan either. That's the thing. I genuinely don't know what people see in Jordan Peterson in terms of him being this really smart guy. You'll see people fawning over this guy, legitimately fawning over this guy, and I have no idea why. I don't get the rationale of it whatsoever. And it's really cowardly for Jordan to do this, because if you're going to set up and say, Marxists won't debate me, and then when Richard Wolff challenges you, and by the way, he's not the only one who's done this. Before that, I think it was Zero Books, who's on YouTube. I think he wanted to do a debate with him, and Jordan Peterson didn't want to do it. So don't try and say that you would be down, but Marxists won't debate you because they're afraid or whatever you're trying to say. And then when they come up to say, hey, let's debate, and he just run away. Not a good look, dude. Not not a good look at all. So, you know, if you really want to keep face, I mean, you should follow through with what you said you would, which is, you know, Marxists want to debate you. Now there are Marxists who are down to debate you publicly, and we know, and you won't do it. And he's not down to really do debates anymore after Matt Dillahunty, because after what happened when he Matt Dillahunty just totally dismantled this guy, and so I think that he's really scared to do that again. I think that's just simply the case. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on this down below. It's somewhat interesting.